Posted by you/Flufflamapajama. For most of our marriage, my husband, 39M, and I, 37F, had a very happy relationship. We had good jobs, decent money, 2 kids, and loved each other. Then he was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and we went through years of painful treatments and recovery together. We moved to a small house to be close to the research center where he underwent treatment. His parents paid half of the down payment on the house, and the other half came from our savings and investments. In the divorce, he gave me the house and took all of his medical debt. We have been divorced for a year, but now his cancer has returned, and he needs treatment again at the same research hospital. He wants to stay in what is now my house while undergoing treatment, and his parents expect me to house him and look after him because he was generous in letting me have the house without taking his rightful share of the equity. When we were married and he was undergoing treatment, it was new, expensive, and very physically draining on him. We were fortunate that both our jobs were supportive and flexible, but with his health issues, little kids, and expenses, we had to significantly downgrade our lifestyle. That, along with the physical changes in his body, made him very depressed. Whenever he felt a bit better, he would go stay in his hometown, a small town where most of his family and many of his childhood friends live. I was doing all the caretaking for him while also dealing with insurance complications. I was managing the kids, the entire household, and my full-time job. We had help from friends and neighbors, but it was very hard. I wasn't happy about him spending his healthier days away from us, but it was good for his mental health, so I didn't feel like I could object. While he was staying there, he reconnected with his high school girlfriend. A couple of years ago, he admitted to me that he was sleeping with her, and I filed for divorce. He had fully recovered from his cancer by then. There are other aspects of the cheating that left me heartbroken and feeling betrayed. His giving me the house and taking all the debt was a sort of apology. His parents feel that I owe him for getting the house and should let him stay there for the 2 to 3 months while his treatment is at the facility. I do want him to get well, and I don't want my kids to lose a loving father. But I can't deal with having him around me, especially not if I end up being his nurse and caretaker again. I'm still very bitter about how our marriage ended. A lot of people close to me are telling me that I should support him for the sake of my kids. Would I be the bad one if I say I can't do that? Up in the comments. They announced their engagement the day the divorce was finalized, and that still hurts so deeply. I'm struggling with this so much. I don't think I hate him. A part of me still loves him as an old friend. I definitely wouldn't want my kids to suffer the devastation of losing their father. He loves them, and they love him. When I look at it as an outside observer, I can understand what he was going through in falling in love with someone else. During the worst parts of his illness, I was frequently cleaning up after him, his vomiting, his loss of bowel control. I pulled muscles and injured myself helping him move. He found that emasculating. So, I can see how he'd find it appealing that someone still saw him as the old him, when he was healthy and strong, while I became the nurse figure. I tell myself that, and I don't hate him. But I went years without intimacy because he was sick. The loss of libido was an expected, temporary side effect of his medication. I accepted that and made do with being celibate. I feel guilty talking about how painful it was because I should be grateful he survived, and it feels so trivial given the situation. But all that time, while I was making do, thinking he wasn't able to, he was sleeping with someone else. That disloyalty still makes me cry. Update 3 weeks later. The Sunday after I made the post, my ex-in-laws picked up the kids for a zoo trip. They sometimes come to pick them up to entertain them, so I thought nothing of it. A few hours later, a very teary and contrite mother-in-law dropped off 2 bawling kids with me. She told them their dad is sick and will die if he doesn't stay with us and go to the hospital. We hadn't had a talk with the kids yet about the diagnosis, and she dropped it on them that he is dying from cancer. He is not dying. It's a painful treatment, but he'll recover. I was so furious I was raging. I called my ex and tore him a new one. He was shocked too, and together we exploded at his mom. She broke down, crying and begging me not to take away her grandkids, as if I trust her after this. My ex and I talked to the kids together, him on video, and reassured them that, yes, he is sick, but he'll be fine. He just needs to go to the hospital, and they'll make him better like the last time he was sick. The kids settled after that, but my oldest has been crying and begging me to make Dad come live with us. I promised them I'd talk to Dad and figure out what's the best thing to do. I swallowed a lot of bile to talk to him about why he was doing this. We had a long and detailed discussion. The bottom line is that he's broke. He still has a decent job, but his credit is ruined, he has a lot of debt, and he stupidly got the cheapest insurance that barely covers anything. His fiancée is no help either, she's worse off financially. So, he needs a place to stay, he can't afford this otherwise. His parents are funding some of his medical payments and are already stretched. He was financially stable when we broke up, so I have no idea what happened in such a short time. Anyway, my ex and his girlfriend moved into my daughter's room. My daughter happily gave it up for her dad and is now sharing her little brother's room. Both kids are over the moon, happy to have their dad in their home. My daughter keeps checking on him every few minutes to make sure he's still okay. My mother-in-law traumatized my kid, and I'll never forgive her for that. I let the girlfriend move in with him because I was too angry to care who looked after him, as long as it wasn't me. I didn't know how I could bear having her in my home, but it seems to be more miserable for her than for me, and that strangely makes it more tolerable. She's teary-eyed and crying all the time. It's only been 3 days, but I'm so annoyed I want to shake her and tell her to pull it together. The current treatment plan is for 3 months, and I'm counting down the days. I am thankful for the many people who gave me great advice on my last post. I wasn't expecting things to go this way, but they played me by manipulating my kids. I'll slowly pull myself and the kids away and move, but for now, I have to deal with this for my kids' sake. Edit. I was trying to make this update more than a week ago, so to add to that, my ex's treatment is coming along nicely. The tumors that grew again are much smaller than before, and the new medication they're giving him is more targeted, so he's not experiencing as many bad symptoms as last time. I had promised myself I wouldn't help and stayed away from both my ex and his fiancée. But I ended up helping him deal with the insurance. His fiancée has the personality of a wet noodle and cries all the time. It was easier for me to handle it than to deal with her struggling. My ex is polite enough to me, but his personality has changed. He's a different person and not very nice towards his fiancée. I didn't expect to, but I feel sorry for her. Up in the comments. I haven't dated yet since the divorce. I want to, but online dating scares me, and my social life revolves around my kids. I've been pretending to have plans just so I can dress up, get out, and feel good about myself. I arranged sleepovers for the kids with their friends on those nights, so I didn't have to leave them with anyone else. I've been amazed by the love and support my kids and I have received from our neighbors and friends. I told a few close people what's going on, and it seems like most people know now. I've received so many offers for help, it's heartwarming how kind people can be. I've also started looking into selling and researching places to move to, but it's so difficult. I don't have the budget to put the house on the market while living elsewhere, especially if it takes longer than 2 months to sell. I also don't feel secure opening the house for showings while my kids and I live here. It's petty of me, but I have to admit that seeing my ex and his fiancée not doing well has been somewhat emotionally mollifying for me. Second update 1 month 3 weeks later. My ex and his fiancée moved out today. His treatments went very well this time around. He had to deal with general weakness and nausea, but no vomiting or voiding issues like last time. It's amazing how much medicine improves and changes. He'll need monthly shots for a while, and I agreed to house him for a weekend next month, but after that, he's on his own. The stay went well, with no real drama. I kept myself busy, and the kids and I traveled a lot. My ex and his fiancée managed the rest of the stay all right, and things worked out. My kids are happy and back to their normal routines. I had a talk with my daughter about how her grandma exaggerated things to get her way, and that it's not okay. She understood, and she has shown no interest in visiting her grandparents, which I'm happy about. The last week of his stay, his fiancée went back to their town to take care of some things since he was doing pretty well on his own. He and I had a few long, detailed conversations. In some ways, they were cathartic, but in others, they were saddening and maddening. I think I got some closure, or at least I'm not feeling the bitterness the way I used to. I may make another post about what he told me, his reasoning and justifications. On another positive note, all the dressing up and going out I've been doing has paid off. I met someone. We've been on 2 dates, and it's going great so far. This is my first time dating since the divorce, so I'm keeping my expectations muted, but it's still very exciting and fun. Third update 1.5 weeks later. I tried writing about our conversations, but thinking about and analyzing it is very depressing. When we had the talk, I felt much better than I do now looking back on it. Then, my new date invited me on a trip during Memorial Day weekend. One of my close neighbor friends encouraged me to go and offered to watch my kids. I was pretty excited, my first adult-only vacation in over a decade. I didn't want my overthinking about my ex to make me feel depressed during the trip, so I put that on hold. The trip went well, and I'm feeling pretty optimistic about this new relationship. Sorry for taking so long with this, but now that I feel happier, I can have a more grounded take on my ex's views. To start with, he was again very apologetic about what he put me through and admitted that I deserved better from him. When he was going through cancer treatment while we were married, I was extra careful with his feelings, always calm and patient with him. That became such a habit that even when he told me about his affair, I still treated him with kid gloves. I was firm about wanting a divorce and refused to consider his insistence on working things out, but I swallowed my anger and didn't lash out at him. This time, though, I got to properly express my hurt and anger at him, and that was incredibly cathartic. He took it fairly well for the most part but was also stung by it and got defensive. He explained in detail how he and his girlfriend got together. She was his high school girlfriend, and she came from an abusive background. In high school, he had helped her a lot and encouraged her to move out of that situation. When he moved away to go to university and she stayed in their small town, the long-distance relationship dissolved. He wanted more of a big city life, and a few years after college, he met me. When he was visiting his parents' home more during his recovery, he reconnected with her. At that time, she was struggling to leave an abusive relationship. It was like their high school days all over again, with her in trouble and him acting as the knight in shining armor. I suppose that can be very appealing to someone who has been facing their own weakness and mortality. When he was home, I was waiting on him hand and foot. I didn't even know he had enough energy to do all the legwork for this other woman, or that he was spending quite a bit to help her. That's where his current financial problems come from. She was in trouble, and he solved all her issues. He's actually proud of how much he helped her and doesn't agree with me that he took something away from me by putting his energy elsewhere while I was working hard to care for him and our family. I don't want to say I don't support helping someone escape abuse, but I can't help feeling exploited. His response was that he did me a favor by spending time in his hometown because it lessened the burdens on me. It's true that when he was away, life became easier in some ways. I had more time, could focus on the kids, and we could cook and eat whatever we wanted. But if he had that kind of energy, he could have helped me, right? He said I was always stressed and upset, and my attitude was draining for him. I resent that, because I remember how careful I was around him, how much I molded myself to be his nurse. He even brought up examples, like when I was so upset I went to the balcony to scream, or the time I snapped at the kids and then cried. He shared stories about how I was pushy and difficult. That stung because I was doing my best under overwhelming pressure. He wasn't making it up. I have my faults, but I worked hard and did my best. I didn't realize that my help and support weren't good enough for him. I didn't make him feel good. I just did the hard work. I think he resents me because he feels he owes me. He likes his girlfriend because she owes him and is dependent on him. Commenter. Why would he even think he could justify his actions? Ops response. He sees himself as the good guy. He downplays the cheating as a small failure that happened multiple times while he was helping his girlfriend. To him, I'm the stubborn one for not being willing to work through it. I did feel a bit of closure from being able to say what I needed to say to him, but thinking back, I believe he genuinely expected me to see him as the good guy after giving all his explanations. He was frustrated when I didn't. On a side note, I really like the guy I'm seeing now. For the first time in a very long time, I was with someone who did all the work of planning and organizing a trip, and I just had to enjoy myself. You really appreciate it when you haven't had that in so long. Fourth update 2 months later. I introduced my boyfriend to my kids this past weekend. We've been spending so much time together and talking almost every day, and I finally felt ready to bring him into their lives. I gave my ex a heads up that I'm dating and would be introducing the guy to our kids. He went very quiet on the phone, then started asking for details about who he is, which I gave him. He tried to dissuade me from letting the kids meet my boyfriend, saying it's too soon and not healthy for them, and all that. As if I had a say when he introduced his girlfriend to our kids. Anyway, I finished the call feeling annoyed. Last night, he called me back to discuss my boyfriend. Apparently, he looked into him, which is fine by me, there's not much for him to criticize. Then he asked if I'm with my boyfriend for money. To say I was furious is an understatement. My boyfriend has a lucrative career and maybe a couple of tax brackets above me, but I haven't even discussed finances with him. I do well for myself and have supported my kids and even my lousy ex, and this is what he asks me. I retorted that no, I'm not with him for his money, I'm with him because my ex-husband dumped me after exploiting me. He got upset and said I have a barbed tongue and that people think I'm nice but don't see how verbally abusive I can be. So that's great. After everything I've done for him, he has no problem being cruel to me over and over again. Fifth update 5 months 2 weeks later. I received a few messages asking for updates, but things have been calm, so there isn't much to report. My current relationship is going well, and we are working on building our blended family. My 2 kids and his son get along really well, they're very close. We've been thinking about buying a house together and selling mine. I'm both excited and nervous about taking that step. As for my ex, he hasn't acted up since our last argument. He's been more aloof, which I actually prefer, so I don't mind. Things seem to be going well on his side too, as far as I know. Sixth update 7 months later. My boyfriend and I bought a new place together, and I've sold the old house. I'm relieved to leave that place behind. While I liked having a home, it held too many bad memories and emotional baggage, especially with my ex-in-laws thinking they still had a claim on it. I will miss my old neighborhood, though, I had a lot of supportive friends there. But my kids love the new place. It's bigger, with a larger yard and nicer schools, so I'm feeling optimistic about this new chapter. As we were clearing out the house, I told my ex to pick up a few of his things that were still left behind. He had some boxes of pictures, kids' artwork, and a few small items, so I left them in the garage for him. When he came to get them, he ended up full-on crying over the memories. We didn't talk or interact, other than me giving him some water and leaving him alone to calm down. But honestly, I felt such visceral rage at his crying. I thought I was over it, that the past was in the past and I'm happy with my life now. But in that moment, I felt so much anger, and it upset me to realize I'm still not fully past what he did. His relationship with his fiancée has ended, and I do feel a bit bad about that. They were supposed to get married in July, but that didn't happen. I heard from mutual friends that she moved back in with her abusive ex. They have kids together, and there was a lot of pressure from her family to reconcile. And yes, her family is abusive too. My ex had helped her stand up to them when they were first dating, and they've always held that against him. So, after staying with my ex while he dug her out of her financial crisis, she's now back with a man who put her in that hole to begin with. In a way, my ex, and indirectly, me, ended up helping some deadbeat save a lot of money. In that sense, I feel angry on my ex's behalf. I mean, I have my reasons to hate him, but he genuinely tried to help an old friend and high school sweetheart, and she screwed him over.